The National Statistical Coordination Board incidents in the country. As reported, the poverty situation posted a downward trend from semester 1 of 2009 to semester 1 of 2012, except for a slight increase in subsistence incidents. Poverty incidence among families is down from 22.9% to 22.3% among families. Among population, it's down from 28.6% to 27.9%. And joining us tonight is the Director General of the NSCBO, Dr. Jose Ramon Albert. Good evening, sir, and welcome to NewsLife.
Good evening.
Sir, to start us off, when we talk about poverty incidents and subsistence incidents, what do they all mean and how are these calculated?
Poverty incidence really refers to the percentage of the population that is considered poor. Subsistence incidence, on the other hand, is the percentage of the population that is food poor, in the sense that they can, even food needs alone, they are unable to actually meet.
First semestral survey of your office on poverty incidence. How important is this survey in providing inputs on what programs and projects will be implemented for the government's poverty reduction program?
Well, let me clarify. The National Statistical Coordination Board is not the one that conducted the survey. It was the National Statistics Office, a separate office under our nation that is attached to our National Economic Development Authority, or NEDA. The FIES is conducted every 3 years. And whenever they usually conduct the survey, they have about 50,000 households that are being sampled across the country. And these are visited twice, July and January, to be able to get the first semester and second semester income data. So what we did in the National Statistical Coordination Board is putting together the poverty lines that we developed, and we actually examined the data from the FIES. Traditionally, whenever government statistical offices produce these poverty figures, this helped the government planners to be able to make some adjustments in their policies and programs.
Sir, when you look at the poverty incidence, and you were talking about poverty line, how much does a family need to make to be able to actually be on that line or over that line, and how are they considered to be below that line?
Well, roughly the food poverty line, or if you're only considering food alone, we are estimating that people need about 5,500 pesos per month for a family of 5. And for a family of 5, once again, if you're going to consider non-food as well as food costs, then they must need around 7,800 pesos for a family of 5.
So now, looking at the figures, Secretary Balitaan said the poverty trend is on a downward trend. Overall, which regions of the country actually benefited from the decline?
We see particularly that there has been some very clear changes in the reduction of poverty in Caraga. In 2009 to 2012, something like from 40% to about 30%, whereas in the case of Ilocos region, there was a substantial decrease also in the poverty incidence between 2006 and 2009.
So what helped in actually decreasing this?
Earlier, I was actually with the Assistant Director General Rose Edelion of the NEDA. She was pointing out that as far as Caraga is concerned, there has been a push, especially for the tourism sector. And so apparently that has contributed to better incomes for the families there.
For those that actually didn't have any improvement in the poverty incidence figures, take the case of agricultural areas in Mindanao. Is it due to natural calamities and disasters?
Well, the NSCB does not really give the explanations. Let me be pointing this out. According to NEDA, which was earlier when Director General was reacting to our report, NEDA Director General in Balitaan, who you interviewed earlier, in fact stated that if you look at the concentration of poverty, many are really dependent on agriculture. And because of the fact that when you think of the agricultural production in the first semester, there was a per capita, there was actually a decline in agricultural output. And we may be able to attribute part of that to some calamities. And also earlier, as I mentioned, Edilion, also of NEDA, was pointing out that there were certain things that happened there. I think she was mentioning something like some algae that might have. We were very, there are all these things like even fishing. The fishing subsector, seaweeds particularly, was affected considerably.
So now, looking at some of the government's programs, like the conditional cash transfer program, has this actually been a factor in easing poverty incidence since it covers poor families all over the country?
Let me point out that as far as the conditional cash transfer program of government is concerned, although again, I am not part of the implementing agencies, as far as I understand it from DSWD, the conditional cash transfer is really meant to be a long-term strategy to alleviate poverty, because as we give some extra assistance to poor, we are giving this assistance conditioned on them sending their children to school. So we would expect that the actual outcomes of improvements in incomes of the families will be in the future, not necessarily on the immediate time frame.
Actually, looking at that, if the figures for the second semester will be released in the future, now, will it reflect more dramatic figures in poverty incidence reduction?
Again, the NSCB does not unfortunately get into forecast, but the expectation, however, of NEDA Director General Arsenio Balitaan earlier was that he said that because if we recall that the GDP figures for the second semester were very dramatic, NEDA Director General Balitaan says that he expects that the actual incomes in the second semester of 2012 of families would have improved, and thus he expects that the poverty trends would be better. That's what he. As I said, the NSCB does not actually engage in forecasts.
Actually, the reason I asked that is that because we've been having a lot of economic growth in the past few months, even last year. We have been now at investment grade, and people are now trying to see whether it actually trickles down to the poor people, which is why will we actually see that in the near future, or will this be seen in the next couple of years?
The NEDA Director General, once again, after we released our report during our press conference, pointed out that if there will be sustained economic growth, and they are hopeful of that, then they would expect that not trickling down, but they want to make sure that as there will be a sustained economic growth, they would expect that the welfare of all our Filipinos would actually be improving.
And finally, sir, looking at it statistically, will the current pace of the economic growth attain the goal of reducing poverty incidence to 16% by 2016?
Again, we do not engage in forecast. I have to explain that official statisticians, only produce the numbers, and in a way we produce them as we only look at the past. But it is our economic planners who make all the forecasts and targets. And
but if you look at the initial results of the survey,
however, again, let me quote NEDA Director General Balitaan, who says that he is hopeful that we will be meeting many of the country's Millennium Development Goal targets.
Okay, on that note, thank you very much for joining us tonight on NewsLife. That was Director General Jose Ramon Albert of the National Statistical Coordination Board. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Robert.